Hey, Kevin?
Yes?
Hey, I heard you altered She-Hulk's ending to remove that Hulk-Todd subplot and then put Daredevil back in it?
Yes, I did.
Cool. Well, I have a wish list of other fixes I'd like you to make. Could you change Quantumania's ending back to the one where Scott dies? Or put Gore's killing spree back in Thor Love and Thunder? Or change WandaVision so that Mephisto actually shows up? I'm Erik Voss, and this is The Deep Dive. It's time for another investigation into the mystery of why does Marvel Studios remove so many of its storylines? Marvel Studios, as one of the most successful and most scrutinized film franchises, has gained a reputation of tinkering with its storylines with reshoots and costly post-production frenzies so that the final product looks less like the cake they pitched and more like something that needs a bit more time to cook. Speaking of cake wrecks, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania's ending with Scott Lang picking up a cake was confirmed to be a last-minute reshoot by set photos of Paul Rudd taken in January 2023, just 1 month before the premiere. VFX artists claimed entire sections of the final act were fully animated action with no on-set shots from actors to work from. A leaked subtitled transcript of the film, which Marvel is now suing in federal court to try to track down the source of, so it was probably legit, suggested a previous version of the movie would end with Scott and Hope trapped in the quantum realm, something the screenwriter confirmed was at least considered. And major breaking news, top Marvel executive Victoria Alonso, one of Kevin Feige's right hands, just parted ways with the studio. And in January, it was rumored that Alonso might have had a blacklist of VFX workers that the studio wouldn't work with again, which might have contributed to the studio's fraying relationship with these VFX teams. Black Panther Wakanda Forever, according to director Ryan Coogler, was originally a father-son story about T'Challa returning from 5 years of the blip to realize he has a son. Now, of course, when Chadwick Boseman died, the film was reconfigured into a Shuri story. But even then, there were other reports of a removed romantic subplot between Shuri and Namor after editors confirmed the second act of that movie was completely reworked and Talokan sequences were removed. And then there was alleged concept art of Doctor Doom in a post-credit scene that never came to be. Like many alleged concept art that comes out, we don't know if this just was pitched for the film or ever actually considered. But also, Thor Love and Thunder removed scenes in which Lena Headey, Peter Dinklage, and Jeff Goldblum were murdered by Gore, but Taika Waititi told Insider that he cut these scenes because they weren't good enough. Christian Bale told IGN that he shot scenes in which Gore slices out his tattoos, so instead we got a Gore the God Butcher who hardly does any butchering. Multiverse of Madness originally opened with Wanda Maximoff decapitating Mordo, a moment shown in poster art and later confirmed in concept art and in storyboards. She-Hulk's head writer Jessica Gao said they reordered episodes and changed the pilot in post-production, which completely left the character Titania's backstory unexplained. Every time a subplot is removed or a film is reworked, the reason is always specific to that particular production. But when it comes to Marvel, observers tend to lump these reworkings into one of two categories. One, to keep viewers surprised, or two, to adjust to fit constantly shifting studio priorities. So by keeping viewers surprised, some of you may have heard, Marvel changes its storylines after the plots leak. Does Marvel actually do that though? Well, with production increasingly happening in work from home setups, that has elevated the risk of film secrets leaking via roommates or family members passing work screens. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Spider-Man No Way Home saw leaks of its trailer, some set video of Andrew Garfield, leaked images of Charlie Cox and Tobey Maguire. But Kevin Feige has said, you need to make sure that the experience itself works regardless of what has been spoiled or not. And so far, folks, we just do not have real evidence of Marvel actually changing a storyline just because some fans who were gonna see the movie anyway on opening weekend saw a blurry image on Reddit. Like the entire plot summary for Eternals leaked 8 months before that movie's release, and Marvel totally stayed the course there. Kevin Feige knows that they are adapting comic storylines that have been known for years, so it's less about knowing what happens as it is about seeing that spectacle on a big screen. If a storyline is dropped or reshot, that's often the reason. The studio just feels it doesn't properly wow viewers to get them to show up to theaters or to subscribe to Disney+. They need a cinematic experience that's a worthy upgrade from the experience you would just get from reading the comic book version. Now, expectations do sometimes get intentionally subverted. Some critics have talked about the, quote, Rick and Mortification of the MCU, in which Rick and Morty writers like Jeff Loveness, the writer of Quantumania and Avengers Kang Dynasty, Michael Waldron, the writer of Loki, Multiverse of Madness, and Secret Wars, and Jessica Gao, the head writer of She-Hulk, that writers coming from this subversive animated comedy, they say overcomplicate these MCU scripts with these meta twists. I don't agree with that. She-Hulk was a meta character in the comics, and Waldron delivering Jonathan Majors in that elevator in the Loki finale was exactly what everyone wanted. These Rick and Morty writers are, if anything, on brand with the MCU's playful tone set by guys like Jon Favreau, Joss Whedon, and James Gunn. This is what the MCU has always been. But the more cynical explanation for Marvel changing its storylines is to adjust to fit constantly shifting studio priorities. So what do we mean by this? The MCU is of course a complex slate of dozens of projects in varying states of development and production that all need to try to sync together as part of one master plan. Marvel Studios centralizes that plan at the top. Kevin Feige and his team of execs, Louis D'Esposito, Stephen Broussard, Nate Moore, Brad Winderbaum, and a few others whose names you'll see attached as executive producer beside the director and head writer on every Disney Plus title. All the major decisions of world building, character introductions, and crossover events are run through this brain trust. And again, Victoria Alonso used to be part of this brain trust, but not anymore, leading to more questions about what's really going on at Marvel. The brain trust in the past has ensured quality across the slate by taking over the more critical visual aspects of every title and outsourcing them to storyboard artists, previs artists, and stunt previs teams. Previs refers to pre-visualization, in which sequences are mapped out with art and animation before they are actually shot. The Cap versus Thanos fight in Endgame, with Cap using Mjolnir to bat the shield, actually came from stunt coordinator Dave McComber's stunt previs choreography. Some critics explain that all this outsourcing is just too chaotic of a way to make a movie, and that everything in a film should stem from one filmmaker's vision and one ironclad script that never changes. Now sure, Steven Spielberg may preach the philosophy of,
if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage.
but filmmaking is also a collaborative art form in which a film is truly written 3 times. Written when the script is written, rewritten when the movie is shot, and then rewritten again when it is edited. When director Christopher McQuarrie began shooting Mission Impossible Fallout, he said he didn't even have a finished script, he just had an outline. Films often evolve and take shape over the course of production, and this idea that it all has to be there in the script just isn't always true. Infinity War's shot of Thanos throwing the moon and the exact look and timing of the dusting, the Russo brothers confirmed that these were found in post. The famous "I am Iron Man" line that kicked off the MCU, it was ad-libbed by Robert Downey Jr. So the problem isn't the improvisation, it's not the writing, it's not the leaks, it's the scale. In 2019, there were 7 hours and 14 minutes of Feige overseeing MCU content. We're just talking 3 movies, Captain Marvel, Avengers Endgame, and Spider-Man Far From Home, which was a lot back then. Now I'm excluding from these numbers ABC TV Marvel titles and Netflix Marvel titles because Kevin Feige didn't directly oversee those titles or consider it a priority to connect with them, at least at first. Now in 2020, there was nothing because of COVID, but in 2021, with 4 films and 5 Disney Plus shows, that number increased to 34 hours and 42 minutes. In 2022, with 3 films, 3 Disney Plus shows, and 2 special presentations, that was 22 hours and 4 minutes. So that was 3 to 5 times as much storytelling to account for, and a compounded amount of permutations in which those stories could interconnect. So lately, with the troubled production behind Blade, rumors began to swirl that Kevin Feige might be spread too thin. The VFX artists who opened up about Quantumania said that they had to split their time between working on Quantumania and working on Wakanda Forever, and had to deprioritize Quantumania. Now, Kevin Feige plans to scale back the number of MCU titles per year, and returning Disney head Bob Iger said that not every Marvel hero needs a 3rd or 4th movie, hinting that we might not have really needed an Ant-Man 3 or a Thor 4. Indeed, the reason Quantumania's ending was reshot might just be because its original ending set up Iron Lad and the Young Avengers, and Disney no longer has the bandwidth to pull that off in the next few years. Folks, the reality is, 2 years with 17 titles released, and then even more announced in the years ahead, hundreds of ideas and pitches in the mix, with a studio that outsources its previs to guarantee billion-dollar spectacle, dozens of teams per title working on home computers, some of this creative experimentation will inevitably leak and give fans a false promise that, when it doesn't show up, they will feel what's taken from them. So we're not suffering a deprivation of storylines, we're suffering an oversaturation of expectations. This actually might be why Marvel's big bads keep fetishizing, erasing chunks of reality. Whether it's Kang promising to burn timelines out of time, or Thanos saying,
As long as there are those that remember what was, there will always be those that are unable to accept what can be.
But as Tony Stark responds to this, we Marvel fans are all kinds of stubborn. So for anyone mourning Marvel's erased storylines, maybe if Marvel removed more of them or announced fewer of them, we'd cherish the little we did have instead of defaulting to, what else you got? And hey, this lesson of less is more in content creation also applies to YouTube channels. So I truly hope you're enjoying the deep dive. I know I am. Let me know what you'd like me to investigate next. You can support us by grabbing some deep dive merch at nerdriot.shop. And please subscribe to the deep dive. You can follow me at EA Voss, and I will see you for the next investigation, my divers of the deep.